In this video, we're going to talk about a couple different types of variables that are different than strings. In this case, we're going to talk about commonly used variables to house numbers if you need to remember a particular number or a particular quantity. So in my teaching project, I'm just going to create a new class called variables. And then I will write the main method, and this will often be done for you at first, but public static void main string args. So what do you do if you want to remember a number? Well, there are two main containers that we're going to be using, two types of containers. One is to remember integers or whole number values, and the other is to remember values where we need to know the decimal portion of the quantity. So and they're different and they're important to know. One of the first things I want to talk about though is naming conventions. And so in Java, common naming convention is that the first letter of any variable or object that you create within a program is lowercase, and then each word that is included in the name thereafter gets an uppercase letter. So for instance, if we want to create an int variable, an integer, we say int. That's the keyword that lets the computer know what type of storage to allot us. Int, and then let's say number 1. So we give the first letter of our variable name is lowercase, and every word thereafter gets an uppercase variable, or I mean letter. Int number 2, etc. You can name it whatever you want. Int Donkey Kong, doesn't matter. These are for you and for those people who are reading codes, or your code. So Eclipse tells us usefully that these variables are not in use yet. They're superfluous to our program, so we need to put those things to work. So this is how we declare integer variables. And remember, and like I said, these are whole number variables, which are very useful often if we need to remember like what index we are on in a list of things or whatever. So what if we want to assign these things values? So we say number 1 equals, and let's store 234. Not in quotes though, as we did with strings. We need to delete those quotes and just send it a number. Number 2 equals negative 4. And Donkey Kong equals 6. It could be anything, any whole number. What if I had told it though number 1 equals 1.2? It's going to get angry at me and tell me can't do that because integers, storage containers of type int, cannot remember decimal points. If we want to remember a number with decimal places, and we often do, we need to use a different type of variable called, called a double. Why is it called a double? It is twice the amount of storage, which we're not going to get into specifically here at this point. We'll talk about it later. But the computer gives it more storage, and so it can have a greater range of values. So in this case, double 1. And you can combine the assigning of a value and the declaration of a variable in one line. Double 1 equals 1.2. Now the compiler, or in this case the IDE, tells us that's fine. You can do that. You can assign a number with a decimal point to something of type double. So you can make as many variables as you need in your program to house all of the information that you are trying to remember. And you can store whatever you would like in those variables and change them, and it's incredibly useful. And it's one of the main things you do in computer programming.